The shuttle doors slid open with a whisper of hydraulics, exposing a cathedral-sized hangar filled with polished floors, floating banners, and a species mix Raina Voss had only studied in briefing files. She stepped out, boots silent against the floor, shoulders squared despite the weight of hundreds of alien eyes. Aurelius Academy of Multi-Species Diplomatic Excellence, the heart of interstellar diplomacy, the place where worlds shaped policy, and where, apparently, gossip traveled even faster than light. A trio of insectoid students paused mid-conversation as she passed. "Deathworlder," one hissed in their clicking language. "Keep your distance," another replied, backing away as if she carried a plague. Raina didn't break stride. She'd heard worse. Earth, labeled Class 5 hostile environment, held a reputation that bled into every colony, station, and diplomatic hall. Humanity was the species that thrived in ice, poison, pressure, and radiation. To these delicate off-world scholars, she wasn't a person. She was a threat wearing shoes. Her hands remained relaxed at her sides, even though every instinct screamed to clench. Better to look calm. She needed to prove her species deserved a seat at the table, not terrify the galaxy on day one. A floating holographic sign guided her. First year's orientation hall. She followed it through corridors that resembled a museum of alien architecture, spirals of glass, shifting light panels, zero-gravity lounges where students floated lazily while discussing treaties and ancient philosophy. Every surface gleamed. Every conversational whisper seemed too careful, too curated. Raina felt like sand tracked onto a silk rug. Inside the orientation hall, the temperature dropped, cool and sterile. Belts of fabric hung from the ceiling, each displaying a symbol of a species. The Volari sigil, the Academy's founders, glowed in shimmering silver. Raina scanned the clusters of students. Most stood in tidy circles. None left space for her. "You're not here to make friends. You're here to represent humanity." She inhaled slowly, centering herself. A small sound, soft, uncertain, broke through the hum of conversation. Something gelatinous slid into view. A transparent being the size of a backpack rippled and expanded into a roughly humanoid shape. "Hi," it gurgled, voice glitchy but warm. "You're the human?" Raina blinked. "And you're Tila." The creature wobbled upward, bioluminescent pulses flickering inside its body. "I'm new too. First contact, and the first alien brave enough to approach was basically a glowing jelly with anxiety." Raina smiled, genuine, not diplomatic. "You want to sit with me?" she asked, tilting her head toward an empty bench. Tila quivered, delighted, and bounced once in agreement. Orientation began when the massive holoscreen activated and a tall figure appeared. Robes drifting like smoke, regal posture sharpened by centuries of discipline. Volari, their principal headmaster Althrion Salus. His voice was velvet sharpened to a blade. "Welcome, future emissaries of peace. Here you will learn subtlety, restraint, and the grace required to guide civilizations." His calm eyes swept the room until they froze on Raina. His tone shifted, barely perceptible, but she caught it. "Some among you," he continued, "come from unrefined worlds. Here we cultivate civilization." Raina held eye contact without flinching. Tila shrank beside her, voice tiny. "He means you," I noticed. Her pulse stayed steady. Salus didn't intimidate her. He irritated her. Later, in the grand cafeteria, tables floated like wide petals over a rippling blue floor. Aliens ate suspended fruits and nutrient mists. No breakable utensils, no loose objects. Too many species considered forks a security risk. Raina carried her tray, actual food. The Academy had printed a crude approximation of a sandwich, but at least it was solid. Tila hovered behind her, choosing to mimic legs instead of gliding. "Humans chew loudly, right?" "I can try to be quiet." "You won't be," Tila predicted. They reached a central table, empty thankfully, and sat. Raina took a bite, savoring the taste, not because it was good, but because it felt like home. Movement rippled at the periphery. 3 tall Volari students approached. skin pale like carved marble, markings metallic and ceremonial. Their movements precise, almost rehearsed. The tallest, wearing a sash of authority, leaned over Raina's shoulder. "You're sitting at a tier priority table." Raina swallowed her bite. It was empty. "That's because no one of worth chooses it," Tila trembled. "We can go—" "No," Raina murmured. "We sit." The Valari tilted his chin, studying her like a specimen. "Humans are territorial animals. I've read the files." "Then you missed the part about manners." One corner of his mouth curled. "Manners are for civilized species." He shoved Tila. Hard. The small alien collapsed in a wet splatter, shape destabilizing. Raina stood before her mind, consciously issued the command. "Instinct, pure and fast. Apologize," she said, voice low. The Valari laughed. "To a blob?" Raina moved. Her hand gripped his sash, pivoting her weight. She redirected his momentum the way combat training had drilled into her muscles. The Valari lifted off the floor, sailed across the table, and crashed into a floating food platform. Gasps exploded through the room. The entire cafeteria froze. Then, silence. Only Raina breathed, controlled and steady. The Valari groaned on the ground, humiliated and stunned. His friends stared at her like she detonated a grenade, a dozen cameras activated. Students whispered, shrinking back. "Deathworlder! She attacked him!" "No species moves that fast." Tila, half-reformed, whispered, "Raina! You weren't supposed to do that." "I know," she muttered. Security drones zipped in, surrounding her. "Human student," a metallic voice commanded, "remain still." She lifted her hands slowly. "I'm not resisting." But in every flicker of alien eyes, the verdict was already there. Dangerous, violent, exactly what they expected. In the disciplinary chamber, white walls, no windows, Raina sat across from Headmaster Salis. No table between them. Just judgment. He studied her posture, analyzing every breath. "I watched the footage," he said finally. "You threw a Valari air across the cafeteria." He pushed Tila. "You responded with physical aggression. I responded with defense." He leaned closer, voice lowering to a cold whisper. "You are a guest here. Your species is tolerated, barely." Raina held his gaze. "Then teach your students not to assault others." A slow smile spread across his face, the kind that said he'd been waiting for this moment since she set foot on campus. "You will apologize." "Excuse me?" "Publicly," he repeated. "On stage. Before the entire academy." Raina blinked once, then spoke with absolute clarity. "I'm not apologizing for protecting someone." Salis stood, robes shifting like a storm. "You are not here to act on instinct. You are here to kneel when told." Raina rose as well. "I don't kneel." Salis's eyes chilled. "Then prepare for consequences. The entire galaxy will watch." The chamber door unlocked behind her. She walked out without looking back. He didn't have to know she was terrified. He only needed to know one thing. She wouldn't bend. The disciplinary chamber door sealed shut behind Raina with a heavy click. The corridor ahead stretched long and quiet, lined with soft blue lighting that seemed to dim as she walked. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was accusatory. Her reflection warped faintly across polished metal walls. Tall, tense, jaw set the way her mother used to scold her for, "Never let them see your fear." She repeated the words in her head until her pulse steadied. Outside the chamber, students who had eagerly recorded her earlier now avoided eye contact. They peeled away from her path as though she radiated contagion. Tila waited at the far end of the hall, body compressed into a small, anxious shape. Their glow dimmed to a nervous flicker. "Are you expelled?" they whispered. "Not yet." Tila sagged with relief, then tensed again. "You should have let him insult me." "I don't matter enough to start a war." Raina's brow creased. "You mattered to me." Tila blinked rapidly, internal biolights fluttering like fireflies. "No one's ever said that." Raina forced a faint smile. "Get used to it." Hours later, alone in her assigned dorm cube, Raina sat on the edge of the narrow bed while her datapad chimed, a holographic call from Earth's diplomatic corps. The room's screen activated, projecting the familiar face of Ambassador Liu. Skull-like thin from too much caffeine and too little sleep. "Raina," Liu began without greeting. "We have a problem," I figured. He rubbed his temples. The cafeteria incident spread across 3 systems in 9 minutes. The Volari Council wants disciplinary action. Their heir suffered bruising. He assaulted another student. "Yes," Liu admitted, "but he did not leave the ground. The visual impact of you throwing him, rescuing Tila," he exhaled sharply. "Raina, listen to me. Earth is the new player here. We don't have leverage. They already think we're volatile." Raina stared at him, arms crossed. "You want me to apologize? We want to keep our seat at the negotiation table. The headmaster has demanded a public apology at tomorrow's assembly." "No." Ambassador Liu's jaw tightened. "This isn't about agreeing or disagreeing. It's about politics. You kneel once and doors open, and if I refuse?" He hesitated. His silence said everything. "You'll pull me out," she finished for him. He didn't deny it. Her throat tightened, not from fear of leaving, but because of what leaving meant. Billions of humans waiting for a chance to be recognized. Earth's reputation hanging by a single girl's decision. "Ambassador," she said slowly, "if I apologize, every species will believe we break under pressure." He looked tired in a way she had never seen. Sometimes surviving means bending. She didn't argue. But when the call ended, her hands shook. In the training room, she worked until her muscles stung. The air smelled of metal and recirculated oxygen. Mats cushioned her movements as she practiced defense drills, clean pivots, angled strikes, force redirection. Her actions were sharp but controlled, the discipline drilled into her since childhood. Behind her, a voice echoed through the empty hall. "For a species accused of savagery," someone said dryly, "you fight with astonishing precision." Raina turned. A Ketherian student leaned against the wall, tall, scaled, expression unreadable. His name surfaced from her orientation notes. "Ravenor, debate team prodigy. Were you watching me?" she asked. He approached, boots silent. "Studying. Volari propaganda says humans rely on brute force. Yet your movements show training. I defend. I don't start fights. Then why throw a Valeriere?" "He pushed Tila." Ravenor scrutinized her face, eyes sharp as knives. "You didn't hesitate." No one should when someone is hurt. He considered that. A faint hum of approval left his chest. "You might be dangerous," he murmured, "but you're not reckless." Raina paused. "That's supposed to be a compliment?" "It's the closest thing my people offer." He turned to leave, but added over his shoulder, "Do not kneel. Once you do, every predator will smell submission." His footsteps disappeared into the corridor. Raina stood alone, thoughts tumbling. The academy night cycle dimmed the halls to velvety twilight. Raina returned to her cube, intending to sleep, until her wall screen lit up again. New message, Headmaster Saelis. Subject, Public Correction Assembly Report. Time, 0900 below. A line of text glowed in gold. "Humility prevents extinction." Raina stared at it. Her chest tightened. The message wasn't guidance, it was a threat. She deleted it. The next morning, the assembly hall overflowed. Thousands of students filled tiered seats, species of every shape and texture. Murmurs rolled like distant thunder. Hollow screens flickered above the stage, ready to replay her offense. Tila touched her sleeve gently. "You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do." "No," Tila corrected, voice trembling. "You don't have to do it their way." Raina looked down. Tila's glow brightened with determination. "You defended me. Let me help defend you." Raina nodded once. That was all she could promise. Headmaster Saelis stood center stage, posture immaculate. His robes shimmered like mercury. "Students," he announced, voice amplified. "Yesterday, an incident demonstrated the danger of instinct-driven species. Today, we correct that misunderstanding." His gaze pinned Raina as he gestured for her to approach. The stage floor vibrated under her boots as she crossed. Lights narrowed into a single beam around her. 1,000 eyes tracked her every movement. Her skin prickled with the weight of scrutiny. Salis faced her fully. "Human," he said. "Kneel and apologize." He said it with the confidence of someone expecting obedience. The hall quieted. Even the ventilation hum seemed to disappear. Raina met his gaze. Calm, clear. "No," Salis blinked, stunned that she'd interrupt him on a stage designed for her. "Humiliation. Your actions were aggressive," he said sharply. "My actions were protective. You are here to learn restraint. I'm here to learn diplomacy, not to abandon integrity." Salis's face tightened. "If you refuse to apologize, you will face removal." Raina took one step closer. "Play the entire footage." A ripple flew through the hall. Salis narrowed his eyes. "The footage has already been archived." "Not all of it." She tapped her wrist slate. The hollow screens behind them lit up, not the clip of her tossing the Valari, but the 7 minutes before it. "The bullying." Tila shoved. Tila's voice shaking. The Valari laughing gasps erupted across the hall. Tila, somewhere in the crowd, glowed brighter than a small sun. Raina let the silence hang. "I won't apologize," she said, voice steady, "for protecting someone who was harmed while everyone else watched." The hall erupted, not in outrage, but applause. Students stood. Even Ravenor tilted his head in approval. Salis paled. Raina didn't kneel. She stood taller. She wouldn't bend. The auditorium did not calm. The standing ovation rippled through every tier, students shouting in languages the translators struggled to keep up with. Some thumped the railings. Others pulsed bioluminescent skin in patterns of approval. It was chaos, but not the kind that frightened Raina. It was the sound of 1,000 minds changing. Headmaster Salis stood frozen under the lights, expression cracking like a surface under pressure. His carefully orchestrated humiliation spectacle had inverted. He was the one exposed. He turned sharply toward the riot of applause. "Order!" Salis snapped, voice sharp and brittle. The microphone amplified every crack of panic. "Silence!" The hall ignored him. Raina didn't move, didn't revel in the attention, didn't smile. Her stance wasn't triumphant. It was grounded, controlled. She hadn't come here to mock him. She had come to prove something. She angled slightly toward the crowd. "I didn't throw someone to show strength," she said, projecting from her diaphragm the way Earth's instructors taught. "I acted because standing still while someone is hurt is its own kind of violence." A hush spread. This time, silence had weight. Salis lunged toward her mic input, intending to cut her feed, only for a deep-toned voice to interrupt from the side platform. That recording was not authorized for. Deletion. 3 figures materialized, cloaked. Emissaries of the Galactic Diplomatic Oversight. "Council!" the audience gasped. Every student understood what their presence meant. The council did not enter academic affairs unless ethics violations reached an existential scale. The lead counselor stepped forward. Tall, insectoid exoskeleton gleaming like wet stone. Voice deep and resonant. "Headmaster Salis," the counselor said, "you suppressed evidence of targeted harassment in order to coerce a false public apology from a student." Salis drew back, pale. "The footage was incomplete. I assessed. You attempted to silence truth for political convenience," the counselor interrupted. The counselor turned to Raina. "You exposed the full sequence. Did anyone instruct you to?" "No," Raina answered. "I did it because honesty matters more than reputation." Whispers swept like wind through dry leaves. The counselor inclined his head. "Human integrity demonstrated," another counselor flicked a holographic slate. A verdict stamped across the air. Ethics violation. Valari administration. The hall erupted. Not applause this time, but stunned disbelief. Salis stumbled forward. "You cannot. I am acting within my rights as academic authority." The counselor's eyes narrowed. "You are relieved of duty. Effective immediately." Security drones descended, surrounding Salis. His robes, once symbols of status, now made him look trapped in heavy fabric. Students leaned forward, eager, predatory. Even the Valari in the seats didn't defend him. Their status had depended on him. Now he was a liability. Salus's voice cracked, desperate. She is a Deathworlder. She should kneel. Raina turned toward him fully. I don't kneel to cruelty. His breathing hitched. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't gloat. She didn't even look angry. Her calm dismantled him more thoroughly than yelling ever could. The counselor gestured toward Salus, now shaking as drones escorted him off the stage. One more note, the counselor added. We commend you, Raina Voss. You upheld the values of empathy and responsibility. Your species has gained our respect. Raina blinked. Respect? They were words she never thought she'd hear here. The counselor activated a hollow appointment. Earth representative, student observer. Status, approved. The room erupted again, this time cheering. Tila launched themselves from the third row, a glowing streak of courage, and collided with Raina in a gelatinous embrace. You didn't kneel, Tila declared, voice vibrating with pride. No, Raina murmured, steadying them. Neither did you. Tears, not of fear this time, warmed her eyes. She lowered her forehead to Tila's cool surface. They quivered in joy. Behind them, Ravenor approached, arms crossed, expression unreadable. You turned an entire auditorium, he said. Impressive. It wasn't strategy, she replied. Just truth. Truth, Ravenor repeated thoughtfully. Your kind wields it like a blade, Raina shook her head. We wield it like a lifeline. He nodded once, his species equivalent of a bow. Hours later, after the assembly dissolved, the corridors of Aurelius Academy buzzed with rumors and new narratives. Some students whispered about Raina with awe. Others approached her with questions about Earth and Deathworld resilience. She wasn't used to attention that wasn't hostile. In the quiet aftermath, she slipped away to the rooftop observation deck. The glass dome above her reflected a living star field, Valari Prime gleaming below like a jewel on black velvet. The door hissed open behind her. Tila rolled up beside her, shifting into a seated form. Do you feel lighter? Or heavier now? Both, Tila hummed. You were scared. Yes, Raina admitted. No point lying. But being scared doesn't mean giving up. Is that a human thing? It's a living thing. They sat in silence. A breeze diffused through the climate filters. It smelled faintly of metal and ozone. Nothing like rain, but close enough that she imagined it. Footsteps approached. The counselor. May I sit? He asked. Raina nodded. He sat beside her, observing the stars. Headmaster Salus spent decades manipulating perception, he said. You unraveled him with transparency. He did that himself, she whispered. I just refused to lie. The counselor turned toward her, facets of his compound eyes glimmering. You represent what diplomacy should be, not submission or dominance, but courage. Raina exhaled a slow breath she felt like she'd been holding since stepping into the academy. Will Earth finally be seen as more than dangerous? No, he answered. She stiffened. Earth will be seen as dangerous and principled. A valuable combination. Raina wasn't sure how to respond to that, but something inside her unclenched. The fear that she'd made everything worse dissolved. Humans don't kneel, Tila said proudly. Raina smiled softly. We stand. And we pull others up with us, the counselor stood. Prepare yourself. Tomorrow you address the Galactic Youth Delegation. Raina blinked. I just got here. You earned here. He left them to the stars. Later that night, Raina sent a message home. A short recording, voice steady. Earth doesn't need to bow to earn respect. We just had to show who we are. She ended the transmission and stared out the glass dome. The future wasn't guaranteed. This academy would still challenge her, test her, try to shrink her. But now, they couldn't pretend she was alone. She had earned her space, not by force, by refusing to abandon someone smaller, by standing when kneeling was expected, and somewhere on the edge of the galaxy, a girl from a dangerous world took her first step toward becoming a diplomat, or something far more disruptive. The morning after the assembly, Raina woke before the academy lights shifted to daytime cycle. Her body was sore from hours of training and tension, but her mind was wired. The events of the previous day replayed in fragments. Sailors being escorted away, the applause, the council's approval, yet the weight of their decision pressed on her chest. Now she wasn't just the human student, she was Earth's first representative. The academy halls were unusually quiet as she walked toward the council briefing chamber. Displays projected news from across nearby systems, images of her standing on the stage, voice captioned in several languages. Humans don't kneel. She hated seeing that sentence printed like a slogan, stripped of context. In hallways, students nodded as she passed. A few whispered her name. Ravenor, leaning against the wall near the chamber entrance, greeted her with a low nod. "You caused a galactic diplomatic incident," he said. "That sounds bad." "Bad implies failure," he corrected. "You succeeded." Tila popped up from behind him, wobbling with excitement. "You're trending in 14 systems." Raina winced. "That's a nightmare." "No," Tila insisted. "That's impact." Ravenor stepped aside. The council waits. Raina inhaled deeply and entered. Inside, a long circular table dominated the room. Holographic constellations floated above it, showing major interstellar powers like glowing constellations on a star map. The counselor from yesterday gestured toward a seat reserved specifically for her. Silver plaque engraved with a new title. Earth. Delegate observer, she sat, back straight. The counselor addressed the room. "We are here to determine Earth's course of action on the Valari-Milis border conflict." Raina blinked. She expected a lesson, not geopolitical warfare. A hologram zoomed on a territorial region, mining systems rich in rare metals. Another council member, a serene aquatic being, spoke. "Earth has no existing treaties. Traditionally, new species observe, not vote. However, your speech at the assembly demonstrates relational influence. That influence can shape outcomes." Raina straightened. Influence. The word made her uneasy. The counselor continued. "We request Earth's stance." Raina swallowed. Her heart hammered, not from fear, but from responsibility. Words from that assembly echoed in her brain. Standing still while someone is hurt is its own kind of violence. She rested her palms flat on the table. "Neither side deserves domination," she began carefully. "And you know negotiation fails when one party enters expecting surrender." The insectoid counselor narrowed his eyes. "You propose?" "Equal terms. Neutral arbitration. No ultimatums." A murmur of surprise rippled around the table. "That is bold," the aquatic emissary commented. Raina held their gaze. "Bold isn't reckless when it's fair." The insectoid counselor nodded once. Recorded. Earth's position will be included in the upcoming summit. A chime rang. The official portion concluded. The counselor dismissed the meeting with a flick of his wrist. As others filed out, he turned toward her. "There are consequences to being seen," he warned. Raina exhaled slowly. "I know." "No," he corrected, voice low. "You do not." The first sign appeared immediately after she left the chamber. A chair floated across the hallway and blocked her path, suspended by telekinetic pressure. She stepped around it, only to find another slide into her way. Raina stopped. 3 Valari upperclassmen emerged from a corner alcove, movements sharp and calculated. Their robes were darker than Salus, symbols etched in violet ink, not students. Valari, noble heirs. The tallest spoke first. "Do not confuse an anomaly with integration." "I don't understand," Raina replied. Another sneered. "You believe applause equals acceptance?" "We don't need you," the third said coldly. Raina kept her voice level. "I'm not here to replace anyone." "No, but you are here to be removed." Raina's posture changed. Weight balanced. Breath slowed. "What are you planning?" The telekinetic air lifted a hand. Raina felt the pressure shift in the air, force gathering around her body, pushing like an invisible tide. The Valari leaned close. "Kneel!" Her jaw locked. The pressure intensified, compressing around her shoulders. She gritted her teeth. "I said no." The force pressed harder, enough to bend muscle, not bone. Raina held her stance. She didn't fight it. She endured it. Tila's voice echoed down the corridor. "Stop!" The pressure faltered. Tila slid between them, glowing fiercely. "She defended me," Tila said. "If you hate her, hate me too." The Valari heir hesitated, eyes narrowing. "Why risk yourself for something gelatinous?" Tila solidified, form elongating. Their biolights brightened in a fierce surge. "Because kindness is not a weakness." Raina stepped forward into the heir's personal space, voice low. "You want to intimidate someone? Choose me. But don't touch my friends." Ravenor's voice cut through the tension. "Enough." He appeared behind the Valari, posture loose but energy dangerous. "You challenge a Deathworlder and expect no consequences?" He growled. The Valari trio backed away, not due to fear of her, but because they were suddenly outnumbered. They left silently, but their eyes promised more. Tila trembled. Raina knelt, not in submission but grounding. "You okay?" Tila nodded, barely. "You held your space," Raina whispered. "So did you." Raina shook her head. "I didn't hold it. I earned it." That night, the observation deck was quiet again. Raina sat cross-legged near the glass, watching starships drift like slow comets. Tila rested beside her, faint glow pulsing with calm. Ravenor joined without asking. "They won't stop." "I know. You have made enemies. Tila has too." Tila flickered indignantly. "Worth it?" Raina looked out into the void. "What happens if I keep choosing the hard thing?" Ravenor sat next to her. "Then the galaxy changes." She looked at the stars, each one a place where Earth was still unknown, untested, underestimated. "Humans were never invited to this stage," she said quietly. "No," Ravenor replied. "You force the doors open," Tila nudged her hand. "And we'll push them wider." Raina leaned back, exhaustion settling into something warm, purpose. She had walked into this academy expecting to prove humans weren't monsters. Now she understood something deeper. Humanity didn't have to be feared to be respected. They just had to stand. And keep standing. A notification chimed on her slate. "Council Summit," Earth's delegate requested. Raina smiled. "Round 2, she murmured. The galaxy had no idea what was coming.